Hello, good evening. My name is Catherine from SEB Housing, and tonight I'm going to run the lottery for the 45 affordable rental units at Alexan Peabody. So I'll get the lottery underway in just a few minutes. If you have any questions during this session, you can either ask through Zoom or you can unmute yourself. You were muted when you came into the session to minimize any outside noise. So this meeting's being recorded. It's going to be saved to SEB Housing's YouTube channel later on tonight for anyone who was not able to join us. I'm going to give you some background information on who applied, and anyone who was approved for this lottery should already have a lottery application number. In this case, it was in the form of a series of numbers, and your numbers go through A.001 through A.137 in this case. If you don't have that number, if you forgot it, please let me know, because that is what's going to be called tonight rather than name. So there's 45 total affordable units, 125 completed applications came in, so there's going to be 125 households in the lottery. The numbers go up to 137 since there was some duplicate applications that needed to be removed. And just quickly want to share that the development team over at Alexan Peabody informed us that there's been a little bit of a delay in getting the units up and running over there. I think in our marketing materials, and we had mentioned that the units were going to be ready for leases in March, so this month. But that's no longer the case, and they're now expecting the affordable units to be ready between mid-April and early May. So not too much of a delay after tonight and the subsequent screenings, but just want to let you know about that. So there are studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms available. For the studios, there's 2 units, 10 applicants. For the 1 bedrooms, let me actually pull up how many 1 bedrooms there are. For the 1 bedrooms, there are 15 1 bedrooms. There were 35 applicants. There are 23 2 bedrooms. There's 54 applicants for those 2 bedrooms, and there's 5 3 bedrooms with 47 applicants. So back when you completed your application, you indicated your household type, and then SEB Housing confirmed it. So just keep in mind that the waiting list for the 3 bedroom unit, type 3 households are going to have priority over type 2 households on that waiting list, and on the 2 bedroom waiting list, type 2 households will have priority over type 1 households. So that's because the affordable housing program is designed so that households don't have priority for units with extra bedrooms that their family might not actually need. And then in addition, for this lottery, you already know this because it was in a lot of the materials and in the email that was sent to you when you were approved for the lottery, but 1-person households cannot rent 2-bedroom units for this lottery, and 2-person households can't rent 3-bedroom units, excuse me, unless a member of the household has a disability that requires them to have that extra bedroom. So some of the waiting lists that are generated after tonight's drawing are also going to have local preference. And that means that households who indicated on their lottery application that they either live, work full-time, or have children going to Peabody Public Schools, excuse me, will have priority on those waiting lists as opposed to households who don't have that local preference. But again, that's just for some units, that's not for all units. And then finally, there are 2 2-bedroom units that have accessibility features. So applicants who need the disabled features of those units are going to have priority on those waiting lists as well. Just give me 1 second. Okay. So there's going to be 2 drawings tonight. And because of all the sorting that I need to do after the lottery, you're not going to know during the lottery itself tonight where exactly your number is going to be on the waiting list, even if you're drawn first. And that's because I still have to sort by household type, whether or not you have local preference and whether or not you need a disabled accessible unit. So the good news is I'll have the waiting list out to everybody, hopefully by tonight, if not tomorrow morning at the latest, and you'll be able to see where you fall on the waiting list. And remember that if you apply for more than one unit size, you can be on more than one waiting list. So there's going to be 2 drawings, and I'll be using a website called random.org to complete the drawing. The first drawing, I'll be screen sharing it so you can see it. The first drawing is going to be the local preference drawing. There was 30 households who indicated they had local preference. So those 30 application numbers are going to be in the first drawing. I'll use a function called a list randomizer on this website, and basically it generates a digital random order. Doing it that way to try to keep it as truly random as possible. And then next, after the local preference drawing, I'll do the general drawing, which will have 125 application numbers in it because that represents everyone who was approved for this lottery. So it's instantaneous. You'll see it on your screen, and I'm actually going to show you just a quick demonstration. I'm going to screen share right now just so you can see what it's going to look like. This isn't the drawing. This is just a demonstration of what it's going to look like. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm just on this website called random.org right now. I clicked on, let me go back so you can see the face of the website. So random.org. If I scroll down, there's a list randomizer function here. I click in there. I'm going to be copying and pasting all of the application numbers for right now. I'm just going to type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the demonstration. So when I do the actual drawing, it will have the lottery application numbers in here in the format that you're familiar with. So A dot series numbers. But for demonstration purposes, 1 through 5, I'm going to click randomize, and it spits out a random order. So in this case, number 4 was drawn first, and then it goes down the line. So that's what it's going to look like in just a few minutes when I do the drawing. So the order of this drawing, of these drawings, allows me to properly sort the results onto waiting lists. And the waiting lists are what determine the order in which households are able to reserve apartments, and then obviously move on to the next step in the process to submit all of your income information and be lease screened by the leasing office. After the lottery, so I mentioned the email will be coming to you with the lottery, with the waiting lists attached, and you'll get more information on next steps at that point. And when you get that email, you want to open the waiting list, and you're going to find your lottery application number on the waiting list that you applied for. So if you apply for a 1-bedroom, you're going to be on the 1-bedroom waiting list. Even if you're not a local preference household, you're going to be on the local preference list as well. You still have a placement on that list. It's just not as high as the local preference household. So just keep that in mind. So when you get that email, you're going to look for your lottery application number. You're going to notice that the top households on each waiting list, their lottery application number is going to be highlighted in green. That's just signifying that those are the top households on the waiting list that are going to be immediately moving forward to the next step in the process, which is to complete a lease application with the leasing office. And that includes credit, background, reference check, that sort of thing that you might be familiar with if you've rented before. And during the lease screenings, the leasing office, the management team over at Alexan Peabody is likely going to be inviting more households forward than there are units. So for example, there's 5 3-bedroom units. They're probably going to be inviting forward at least 7 or 10 households to complete the lease screening. That's typical, and it's because applicants a lot of times drop off, they're ineligible, they change their mind about renting at the property. So in order to speed up the process for everyone, you want to make sure that you're not just inviting one person forward at a time. So if you're found lease eligible by the leasing office, if you're the the person with the highest position on that waiting list, you're going to have the first chance to select and reserve one of the apartments. If you're not the top household on the waiting list, or if you're not one of the top few households on the waiting list, you're not going to be moving forward in this process right now. However, if for one reason or another applicants ahead of you on the waiting list drop off, which they will, the leasing office is going to have to make their way down the waiting list to fill the apartments. So if you're not one of the top households after tonight, like I said, you won't be contacted right away, but you might be contacted if top households drop off the waiting list, which certainly does happen. And so it's important to keep in mind that SEB Housing, we've only completed kind of a preliminary review of your lottery application. You've only self-reported what your income is up until this point. You haven't yet been found lease approved by the leasing office, and then you also haven't yet submitted your income and asset information to us, which would be the step after the lease screening with the leasing office. So if you reserve one of the units because you have been approved by the leasing office, that's when you'll actually come back to SEB Housing to submit all of your income and tax information to us, so we can do your eligibility review for the affordable housing program. So just a reminder too that households living in affordable apartments will have a recertification every year with the leasing office. So we just kind of remind everyone to have a file. You might want to maintain, a copy of your taxes, and obviously just know where you can get pay stubs and things like that online if you need to access them. And if you were to sign a lease, for example, for May of this year, around this time, or maybe even a little bit earlier next year, is when that leasing office is going to be asking to start your recertification for your lease renewal. So that's really it. I'm going to do the drawing now. Are there any questions before I do that? I know there's just a couple of you on the call.
Yeah, I have a question. Last couple of lotteries that I was in, they kind of neglected the fact of listing the handicap units, and they sent an additional email out saying that we apologize, we forgot to set you on the list of the handicap units. So will you be selecting a list of the handicap units this evening?
So there's 2 accessible units, and they will, hold on, there's more than 2, isn't there? No, there's 2 accessible units. One is built out for mobility impairments. That's a 1-bedroom. The other is a 2-bedroom that's built out for just hearing impairments. So if you indicated on your application that you qualify for one of those, it was a question on the application. So if you selected yes for either of those, you'll be, and you applied for a 1 or a 2-bedroom, for example, you'll be on those waiting lists. So when you got the email with your lottery application number, it should have confirmed for you in that email whether or not you selected yes for either of those. Do you remember if you saw that in the email?
Yeah, that really wasn't my question. I know I'm deemed eligible for a handicap unit because I'm in a handicap unit now. My question is, are you doing a separate lottery pick for handicap units, or are the handicap units going to be incorporated into the local preference or the general list?
They're not local preference. So there's no local preference for the 2 accessible units. And when I do the drawing tonight is for all of the units, but I'm not creating the waiting list until after the drawing. So that won't be like during this call. That'll be after, when I'm able to look at the results from this drawing, and then I'm plugging everybody's application number into the different waiting lists based on their priorities.
And at that time, are you going to develop the handicap list?
Yep. So the waiting list, how many waiting lists are there for this? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9 total waiting lists for this lottery, and those are 2 of them. Yep. 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 So those will be attached to the email that you receive after the waiting lists are created. So yeah, there'll be 2 separate waiting lists for each of them. Anybody else? All right, so I'm going to share my screen again so you can see what I'm doing here to get ready for the drawing. So I'm going to go back to random.org to the main screen here, and I'll share my screen so we can do the lottery drawing for Alexan Peabody. All right. So here's random.org again. I'm going to go down to list randomizer. I have a spreadsheet up here with lottery application numbers for everyone who indicated that they have local preference. So these are households who live, work full-time, or have children in Peabody Public Schools. So there's 30 application numbers here. It looks like 31, but that's just because there's a header. I'm going to copy all of these, and I'm going to plug them into the list randomizer. So there's 30 application numbers here. These represent the local preference households for this lottery. And I'm going to click randomize, and it's going to give me a random order of priority for these numbers. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to put it just in a spot that's a little bit easier to read. So just bear with me for a minute here while I kind of separate this a little bit. And I'm going to save the results. So that was the local preference drawing. Doesn't tell you a whole lot right now, but it's going to help me to create the waiting list later on tonight. So I'm going to quickly do the general drawing, and then anybody that's on this call that wants me to look up their number, I can scroll through and let you know where your number was drawn. So this was the local preference drawing right here. I'm going to go back out completely from this and go to list randomizer again, and then I'm going to go to my spreadsheet again so I can get the general list here. This list, this is everyone's lottery application number, so there's 125 application numbers here. I'm going to select all of them because this is the general drawing, meaning everyone who has a lottery application number that was found to be eligible for the lottery for Alexan Peabody is in this drawing. So I'm going to click randomize, and this is the general drawing for Alexan Peabody. 125 application numbers were here, and now I'm going to do the same thing just to put them into an easier format for us to look at together, and I'm going to save it so we have those results. So that's the drawing. Now, if you don't see your lottery application number in the first 18 here, it's because if I scroll down, you should be able to see it. So I'm going to quickly do that just so you can see the results. I'm going to get rid of this so you are able to see it a little better. This was the general drawing results. I'm going to scroll down. There's only 125, so will only take me a minute here. And if you don't see yours or if you have a question, obviously let me know. This is not the waiting list yet. There are going to be 9 waiting lists for this lottery, and I'm going to be sorting the results onto the waiting list after tonight. And I'm going to screen share the information packet as well, so you can see kind of the order of priority that I'll be following when I create the waiting list. So I'm down to almost 100 now, and this is the general drawing that was here. So that's the general drawing. This is the local list. So if you were a local preference household, your lottery application number is going to be here as well, because this is going to be the order of priority for local preference households. And there's 30 of them there. I know there's a question in chat, so I'm going to look at that. Okay, so someone wants me to look up their lottery application number. It's A.0097, and I'm going to do that now. In the general drawing, you were drawn 26, and you were not on the local list. Yep, A.0022. In the local preference list, hold on one second here. Local preference list, you were drawn 23rd. That's A.0022. And in the general list, you were 23rd. A.0060. You were drawn 18th in the general drawing and not on the local list. All of you are pretty high up, which is good to see. Anyone else want me to look up your application number? And again, this is just the drawing itself, because once I sort onto the waiting list, you're going to see kind of where you fall based on everybody else. And how I'm going to be doing that is I'm going to be looking at this page on the information packet. For the local preference list, the top application numbers on this 1-bedroom waiting list is going to be all local preference households, followed by non-local preference households. And then for the 2-bedroom waiting list that have local preference, it's the larger local preference households first, etc. So you can see kind of the order of priority on each waiting list on this page of the information packet. And then if I scroll down, the disabled accessible units are here as well. They don't have a local preference tied to them, so it's just going to be households who require the features of the unit. And that's how that is prioritized there. So there's one other question. So A.0023. I'll look up that number for us. So A.0023. You were drawn 12th in the local preference and 121st in the general drawing. Anyone else? There's a few more people that had joined in. So we just did the local preference, and we did both drawings, local preference and the general drawing for Alexan Peabody. And the waiting lists are going to be sent to you later on tonight once they've been sorted. The question that just came in is there are 16 2-bedroom units. There are 16 2-bedroom units that have local preference, and there's also 6 additional 2-bedroom units that are going to have a wait list without local preference. And then there's also a disabled accessible 2-bedroom unit and a 2-bedroom unit for households who indicated they have hearing impairment as well. So 2 accessible units. So I guess that's a total of, let's see, 24. There's 24 2-bedroom units. 23 3-bedroom units, sorry. 2 studios, 15 1-bedrooms, 23 2-bedrooms, 5 3-bedrooms. Any other questions? I'm going to work on these waiting lists, and we have your email addresses. That's where the results are going to be sent. And you can expect that to come from either info@scbhousing.com, INFO, or no reply at scbhousing.com. And although it says no reply, you can email us at info with any questions on the results or anything else. And so you'll be hearing from us shortly. Thanks for joining, and we'll be in touch soon. I appreciate your attendance. Have a good night.